Bill 135, that's the Critical Teacher Shortage Act of 1998. Is what this is just a repealer. It is for school districts where there's a shortage, there's a $6,000 grant that teachers can get to buy a home, and they've got to teach in that district for a certain amount of years. I believe it's 5 years. But anyway, all this is a repealer to 2024. And if there's no questions, I'm going to ask for title sufficient to pass. Are there any questions? Motion. You made the motion. Motion by Kent. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Motion passes. The next one's House Bill 302. It's the Community Schools Act. The lady from AMIT, Chairman Cockerham's going to handle that bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman and ladies and gentlemen of the committee, House Bill 302 is our community schools bill. And this bill came before the committee last year and passed the floor last year. The bill is the same bill. It amends the District of Innovation statutes to expand the program to allow for the inclusion of community schools. And it defines a community school as a traditional district public school that partners with community-based organizations to coordinate academic, social, physical health, and mental health services to reduce barriers to learning and improve education outcomes. To qualify as a community school, the partnership must have integrated student supports coordinated by a community school director, have expanded and enriched learning time and opportunities, including before school, after school, weekend, and summer programs, have an active family and community engagement, which brings students, families, and the community into the school as partners in children's education and makes the school a neighborhood hub. Include a science, technology, engineering, and mathematics program component as a meaningful part of its curriculum, and have collaborative leadership practices. In granting the District of Innovation status, the State Board of Education is required to allow those low-performing schools and districts transitioning to community school models a 3-year transition period before that school or district is taken over. The bill broadens the purpose of District of Innovations to more than just an academic improvement, but addresses socioeconomic achievement gaps and increasing student attendance to reduce chronic absenteeism, reducing disciplinary issues, increasing access to dual enrollment, and increasing college preparation. The bill goes further to require the community school publish its goal and performance targets and make the results of those targets available to the legislative education committees after a year period to provide a holistic look at the program's efficiencies and inefficiencies, and a method to identify necessary changes through the use of a comprehensive needs and assets assessments. Lastly, I would just say, Mr. Chairman and ladies and gentlemen of the committee, the bill allows the community school to be a beneficiaries of gifts, grants, and donations from governmental entities, as well as private entities and individuals for purposes related to its function as a community school. And that's my explanation of the bill, Mr. Chairman. I'll yield for any questions.
Thank you, lady. Are there any questions? Again, like the lady said, we passed this last year out of our committee and got bogged down over in the Senate. And hopefully they will pass it this year. Are there any questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion, lady?
Title sufficient do pass, Mr. Chairman.
You heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Thank you, lady.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, the next bill is House Bill 314. This is from the State Department of Education. This is permits them to receive various contributions from public and private donors. Again, this is kind of a no-brainer. This allows them to take donations like from the Kellogg Foundation, different organizations out there. And right now, they're not allowed to do that. So that is an explanation of the bill. It just allows them to receive donations. Are there any questions? Seeing none, I have a motion. Title sufficient do pass. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, bill passes. The next one is House Bill 370. Again, this is a fairly simple bill. Is what it is that we have private schools that are accredited through Mississippi Department of Education, and we want to change the way they buy textbooks to allow them to do it the same as our public schools do through the purchasing laws. And that's all this does is change the way their books are bought just in using the same. And these are private schools that are accredited through the State Department of Education. Are there any questions? Seeing none, I have a motion. Title sufficient do pass. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Okay, the next bill is House Bill 427. Okay, I'm going to back up here. I'm going to go to House Bill 487. I apologize. House Bill 487 is what this does. It repeals some old laws that's been on the books for 90 years. The Library Commission asked us to do this. All it does is pull some antiquated laws saying that county has to give $300 each year to run the libraries in each county, and also they have to give a report to the counties and stuff. A lot of these don't even have county libraries now, they're municipalities and all, and it's just to get an old law off the books. And that's all that does. Are there any questions? Seeing none, have a motion? Title sufficient do pass. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed. And we do have a few of these technical bills that are really just cleanup. That was what, 487? Okay. 504. Okay, again, this is House Bill 504. This is a cleanup is what we're doing. This is Commission on School Accreditation, clarify membership composition. And all we're doing is reflecting the 4 congressional districts instead of the old 5 congressional districts. We're just updating our books pretty much, or our laws on that. That's all that is doing. From the old congressional districts, the 3 members now will go to at large, and it's 15 member membership. So all this again is just a little bit of cleanup. Are there any questions about it? Seeing none, I have a motion. Title sufficient do pass. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed. Okay, the next one's House Bill 633, and I'm going to recognize the junior gentleman from Harrison, Representative Felcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to present this bill. I have a committee substitute for House Bill 633, and I'll take you through a brief explanation of the bill, but the gist of it is to ensure that all students in Mississippi receive education in computer science and cyber. And so we'll go through section 1, simply names the bill, which this bill will be known as the Mississippi Computer Science and Cyber Education Equality Act. Section 2 states the legislative desire for computer science and cyber education. Section 3 provides for the definitions of computer science and cyber classes. Section number 4 will cover the MDE authorization based on the 2018 College and Career Readiness Standards, and also cover the phase-in of the computer science training for teachers in the implementation of the curriculum. This will go from the school year 2022 through 2025. Section number 5 states that MDE will review district submitted courses to enable high-quality online computer science education courses for school districts through the virtual school. Section number 6 covers the MDE assistance with teacher training. The gist of this is that the Department of Education will work with the Center of Cyber Education at Mississippi State to train teachers, and that preference should be given for schools who have the fewest teachers trained in computer science. MDEs shall also provide a report. This report will be provided to the Speaker of the House, House Chairman of Education, the Governor, Lieutenant Governor, and the Senate Chairman of Education. The report shall include a summary of current landscape for K through 12 computer science education, a statewide plan for implementation, plan for teacher development and certification, development of vetted list for approved curriculum providers, and identification of computer science classes for additional core graduation units. Section 7 outlines that IHL shall work with member institutions to train teachers in computer science. This is so that we have teachers coming out with their certificates and we're not having to train them again, if you will. And Section 8 is just stating that if passed, this law will go into effect on July 1st, 2021. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my explanation of the bill. I'll now entertain any questions.
Thank you, gentlemen. Does anyone have a question?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, lady.
Thank you, Representative Felsher, for sponsoring this bill. I like this bill. I sponsored something similar last session, but I see that there's no appropriations attached to this. Is this going to be a heavier burden on schools to be able to provide the training and the equipment in order to implement this program? Or are there plans to be able to afford that?
Yes, ma'am. Lady, that's a great question. First of all, there is a commitment from the private sector through CSpire, Code.org, and many others to step up to the plate and assist with training and funding. CSpire has pledged $1 million in the first year. This money will be allocated through RCU at Mississippi State in all probability and through some other places to help train these teachers at no cost to the school districts. We will indeed have to make up any appropriations needed through the phasing in of the training of teachers for computer science and cyber education. However, it is a limited amount of time before we have all teachers trained, and then there will be no further, there will just be remedial type education, just updating your certificates and stuff like that, just like with any other certificate that you may have teaching. So that is how that would work.
Well, that's awesome news. That's great news. Is there an opportunity for Mississippi State to partner with an HBCU within the state?
There may be, I don't know of that, but I would definitely try to facilitate that with you and help you in exploring that. Please get with me on it.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? Representative Gibbs, do you have a question?
Yes, just a clarification. I think he answered, I just didn't hear it. I understand it's from K through 12. What did he say when it gets to high school? Is this an elective or a core course that's going toward graduation? I think he said something about it. I just didn't hear it all.
Yes, lady. The gist of this bill is to provide that computer science and cyber education become a core element of high school education. It's already taught in about 50% of our high schools in Mississippi, but about 50% are lacking in that curriculum and education. And what we're trying to do is ensure that all students in Mississippi have this integral key to enter the workforce and through the next level of education, and that no one's left out.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, before I call for a motion, I just want to thank the gentleman from Harrison. He has put a lot of time over the summer and through this session and all, and a lot of work and effort in this. and has done an outstanding job. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Do you have a motion for me, gentlemen?
My motion is to adopt the committee substitute title sufficient due pass.
Okay, title is sufficient, due pass, committee sub. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Thank you. Okay, the next one is House Bill 702. This is, I don't know how many of you are familiar. Teachers have to have their contracts out and signed by a certain time, but there's never been any safeguard or anything for teacher assistants. And they leave them hanging on a lot of times. I don't want to say everybody does, but a lot of districts leave them hanging on after the budget's adopted and right before school starts, and they have no clue whether they have a job or not. All we're saying is we want to treat them more professionally and all here, and we're saying after you adopt your budget, you've got 10 days. You know you've got your budget, you know what kind of money you have, and within 10 days, we're asking you to notify the assistants of whether they're going to be hired back or not. And I think it's just a fair and just thing to do. But anybody have any questions? Representative Gibbs, do you?
I do not. I thought,
Okay.
let me take that off. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Fine. Any other questions? If not, I have a motion, title sufficient, due pass. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, passes. The next is House Bill 754, and I'm going to yield to the gentleman from Lafayette County, Representative DeWeese, to handle the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 754 is a dyslexia awareness bill. This has been worked on for many years. I'd like to thank Representative Byrd. He's been very instrumental in the dyslexia program across the state. We've put a lot of time into this over the summer with the Department of Education, Special Education Director. And what this does is it provides education to teachers in the recognition of dyslexia. Also lines out programs for them that Department of Education will develop. The other part that this bill does for us is it brings us in line with the current federal law. That's an explanation of the bill. Happy to answer any questions if anybody has any questions.
Do we have any questions? Seeing none, appreciate your effort in this, Representative DeWeese. Do you have a motion for me?
Motion is title sufficient, due pass.
Title sufficient, due pass. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, the next one is House Bill 852. This is the pay raise for teachers and assistants. And what it is, it is somewhat a mirror image of the Senate's bill that they passed. The only difference is that we have bumped the assistants up another $100, where we've got $1,100 for them instead of $1,000, trying to close that gap a little bit as we can afford it. And again, this is what we're proposing. I'm not going to say that this may not change or something down the road at the end in the budget process, but right now that's what we're hoping we can do. Whether it moves up a little bit or moves down a little bit, we just don't know, but I feel comfortable with these numbers right now. And again, like I said, the assistants are a little higher on our end, but virtually the same. And I encourage all of you to go by the clerk's office and sign on to this bill if you choose, if you want to. And if you've got friends out there that's not on the committee, please tell them the bill's out there. It's House Bill 852, and tell them to go sign on it also. I know it's important to a lot of people to sign on this bill. So again, I just want them to know it's out there and just tell them it's there. Are there any questions on the bill? Seeing none, it's title sufficient, due pass, committee sub. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, thank you. All right. The next one's House Bill 853. I yield to the gentleman from Lamar to handle the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 853 consists of technical amendments to provisions of the Mississippi Charter Schools Act. This was created in collaboration with the Charter School Authorizing Board based on their feedback. I'll go over quickly these four changes, all technical in nature. The first change would revise the deadline from July 1st to October 1st, by which the Mississippi Charter School Authorizer Board is required to publish a pamphlet of statutory and regulatory updates to charter schools. The second change would revise the requirement imposed upon the Authorizer Board to publicize requests for proposals by a specific date to simply require an annual publication for such requests. The third change would revise the deadline from October 1st to December 1st, by which the Authorizer Board must submit its annual legislative report, as well as the frequency that peer is required to submit an evaluative report from annually to even-numbered years only. The final change would provide one gifted education teacher unit and one special education teacher unit to charter schools in their initial year of operation. That is a brief explanation of these changes. Happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, what's your motion, gentlemen?
Title sufficient, do pass.
Title sufficient, do pass. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Okay, the next one is House Bill 1047. The gentleman from Lamar will handle that one.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 1047 would remove the cap on the number of national board certified nurses, speech language pathologists, audiologists, and certified academic language therapists who are certified by the national board and eligible to receive the annual $6,000 salary supplement. Currently, nurses are capped at 35 and speech language pathologists are capped at 20. This bill would also add athletic trainers who are certified by the national board and employed by a local school board or the state board of education to those who are eligible. This is a combined version of bills we passed last year that would do the same thing. The athletic trainers will be capped at 20 under this legislation. That's a brief explanation of the bill, and I yield for questions.
Okay, are there any questions? Seeing none, you have a motion, gentlemen.
Title sufficient, do pass.
Title sufficient, do pass. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Again, I encourage the ones who want to go by the clerk's office and sign on to this one. It's a pretty popular bill for the people in your district and your areas. They've been pushing for this for years, and it may be one you want to sign on to. Okay, the next one is House Bill 1123. This is the Early Learning Collaborative, and the gentleman for Lamar will handle this one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 1123 would amend the Early Learning Collaborative Act of 2013 to require evidence-based curriculum that demonstrates significant effect on improving outcomes with statistical data. This was a request by peer in collaboration with MDE, just for some clarity upon their last review of the program. This bill also requires MDE to submit a program operation and outcomes report annually and a rigorous evaluation of short-term and long-term program effectiveness every 3 years to both the legislature and the governor. Peer is then required to review the 3-year report and the annual report for purposes of submitting an independent summary of findings to the legislature. This bill also increases the per student allocation to no less than $2,500 for students enrolled in a full day program and no less than $1,250 for students enrolled in a half day program. This would signify respective increases of $350 and $175 per student. This change was actually made last year via an appropriation. So this bill simply brings the statute up to what we were appropriating last year. So this bill doesn't actually represent any new funds to the program based on last year's spending. That's a brief explanation of the changes in House Bill 1123.
And again, this bill is what we did last year, like the gentleman said, and we're just bringing it forward in a bill and not into a line item in appropriations because it kind of fell through the cracks and that was the only place we put it last year. Are there any questions? Seeing none, what's your motion, gentlemen?
Title sufficient, do pass.
Title sufficient, do pass. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion passes. The next one is House Bill 1179. This is a teacher loan repayment program. The gentleman from Lamar will handle that one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 1179 repeals several existing loan forgiveness programs for teachers that have never been funded and creates a new program, a single program in its place, obviously subject to the availability of funds, which is not included in this bill. Eligible applicants must demonstrate that he or she have graduated from a baccalaureate degree granting state IHL that is recognized and accredited by the State Board of Education. They must have signed a full-time first-year teacher contract. They must have obtained a standard 5-year license. Those with emergency licenses are ineligible to participate. And outstanding qualifying undergraduate educational loans obtained by the applicant for undergraduate educational expenses. So this bill, it will actually be loan forgiveness rather than a grant or scholarship to initial recipients on a first come, first served basis. Priority will be granted to those submitting renewal applications, so those who have been teaching for multiple years. The way this program would be structured is the amounts are designed to increase by $1,000 for each year for 3 years that a licensed teacher is teaching, and the recipients teaching in non-critical shortage areas, the awards range from $2,500 in the first year to a max of $4,500 in the third year. And then those teaching in critical teacher shortage areas range from $4,500 to $6,500 in the third year. The grants are also paid directly to the loan service provider or institution who's granted the student loan. That is a brief explanation of the changes in this bill and the changes that go into the combined program. I yield for questions.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, what's your motion to?
Title sufficient do pass. That's good. Okay.
Title sufficient do pass. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Look, just real quick before we move on from that, let me say this, that Pete from MDE, most of y'all know Pete sitting behind me here. Pete, I believe that the people going into teaching is up, isn't it now? I mean, we changed the ACT score to allow more people in the program.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So last year, you guys did an amendment to what was known as the Education Works Act that passed under the old administration, which would, at the time, teacher candidates had to meet 3 requirements: 21 on the ACT, pass the praxis and have a 3.0 GPA. And so last year, the legislature removed the 3 requirements and just said that a candidate had to meet 1 of the 3 requirements. So, and then we had a person who testified last year that said that instantly when you guys did that, that could see about 350 potential persons going into the teaching field from last year. So we appreciate that.
And I appreciate, I know that was a hard vote, but I think Jackson State, Alcorn, and Southern are probably the 3 universities that are up the most from what I understand. And it was much needed, and I appreciate y'all's support on that from last year. The next bill is House Bill 427, and again, the gentleman from Lamar will handle the next 2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So for House Bill 427, I do have a committee sub. This bill would equip teachers with much needed training to identify the signs of trauma in students and act appropriately to ensure a safe learning environment for all students. Traumatic experience like neglect, emotional, physical, and psychological abuse, exposure to domestic violence, and others directly impact a student's ability to learn, and it's essential that we equip our teachers with the necessary skills to handle these situations appropriately. So again, this bill would simply add a training course to the list of courses that teachers take before they are licensed to teach, just to identify traumatic experiences in students. That's a brief explanation of this bill.
Are there any questions? If not, your motion is title sufficient to pass. Committee
sub. Yes, sir.
All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Gentlemen, you've got the next one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 925 would update existing building code that requires regular water drinking fountains in schools, instead requiring water bottle filling stations in new constructions and in schools, in instances when schools are doing $100,000 or more in renovations. As we all know, water fountains have been obsolete for most of the last year due to COVID. And even before COVID, they were known to be some of the germiest surfaces in schools. Students have been shown to triple the amount of water they drink in the day when they have access to clean filtered water that these filling stations would provide. So I think this is a great opportunity for us to encourage good hydration in our schools with our students, while also cutting down trips to the nurse's station for things like dehydration and others. So that's a brief explanation of the changes in this bill.
Are there any questions? No, I don't need it. I'm fine. Seeing none, the motion is
Title sufficient to pass.
All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Chairman.
We're gonna skip 1101. We're not gonna do that one. And that concludes our meeting, but let me thank all of y'all for coming in and doing this Zoom. I know it's a little harder, it's a little difficult, and hopefully next year we'll be back to normal, but I appreciate it if y'all will keep coming back to the meetings as we have them. It means a lot, and appreciate y'all participation. Again, thank y'all, and that concludes our meeting. Rise and report.
Thank you.
Thank you.